What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. In today's video, I want to talk about Louis Riddick possibly being the next GM for our Atlanta Falcons. But if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you'll know when I've done Atlanta Falcons content. Hit that like button for your boy. I do appreciate you guys continuing to tune in. I appreciate all the new subscribers. We are on the road to 1K. We're currently sitting at, I believe, 725 subscribers. So I appreciate all of you guys continuing to share out the content, continuing to tune in. I couldn't have done it without you guys. But with that being said, let's jump right into the video. So breaking news, Atlanta Falcons Nation. It's been rumored that Louis Riddick is possibly one of the candidates for this GM job for our Atlanta Falcons, or being our next GM. Personally, I kind of wanted to weigh in on this topic. I do think that Louis Riddick would be a good GM just because he's a former player. He actually played for our Atlanta Falcons in the 90s as a defensive back and as a safety. And he also played with the Oakland Raiders back in the 90s. He also was on a part of the Washington Redskins organization where he was like a scout for them. And he also worked for the Philadelphia Eagles for a little while as well. So he has a ton of background as being a player in the NFL for about, I believe it was about 6 to 8 years. And then also him being a scout for the Redskins and for the Philadelphia Eagles. And then now he actually calls games for ESPN on Monday Night Football. And he's been an analyst, an NFL analyst for many years for ESPN. So he's been some of everywhere, but he has a ton of football knowledge. He is a bright football mind. Personally, I think that he would be a great candidate because he stayed current. One thing I love about Louis Riddick is he's been around the game, kind of like Jon Gruden and Mike Mayock when they were hired by the Oakland Raiders. They have they're similar to Louis Riddick because Jon Gruden, before he went back to coaching, becoming the head coach of the Oakland Raiders, he was calling Monday Night Football games similar to Louis Riddick. He had been away from the game for about 10 seasons. As you know, he used to coach the Oakland Raiders. And this is Jon Gruden I'm talking about. He coached the Oakland Raiders and he coached the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where he won the Super Bowl. And then he went into working for ESPN and doing Monday Night Football. He did that for about a decade. And then he went back into coaching and was hired by the Oakland Raiders, now the Las Vegas Raiders. And he decided to bring along Mike Mayock, who was working for the NFL Network. At the time, he was a scout. He did a lot of stuff in the draft and stuff like that. And Oakland and now the Las Vegas Raiders brought Mike Mayock in, to be their GM for Jon Gruden as the head coach. So I think that this is a similar situation, kind of with Louis Riddick, because he's a guy that actually played in the 90s. And like I said, then he worked a couple years in the early 2000s with the Washington Redskins and the Philadelphia Eagles. And then he's been doing television and doing ESPN, being an analyst and things of that nature, and calling games for Monday Night Football. So he's been around the game, just like Jon Gruden. He's been studying the game and the way that it's played now, because the way the football is played now is a lot different than the 90s. In the 90s, the game was more physical. You could get away with more. Now the game is more wide open. It's more of an offensive game. And Louis Riddick, because he's called these games, he understands the defensive schemes. He understands the offensive schemes. He understands what type of players you need to be successful in today's current league. So I think he would be a great hire for our Atlanta Falcons for the mere fact that he has the experience and he's been around the game, just like Jon Gruden. If you remember when Gruden was with ESPN and he was doing Monday Night Football, he would break down tape of all the different teams, all 32 NFL teams. He would have to study before calling a game, each team and different offensive schemes and things of that nature. So he stayed very close to the game. And that's when he came back and went back into coaching with the Oakland Raiders, now the Las Vegas Raiders. I feel like he had a lot of success, him and Mike Mayock, because they had been around the game. So even though he wasn't coaching, he was around the game, he was calling the games, and he was able to take tidbits from each and every scheme and system and add it to his, to his toolbox. So when he went back to coaching, he was able to take different things from different schemes and different things he learned by studying tape and by studying all 32 teams. And I feel like the same thing with Louis Riddick, being that he's been doing ESPN, working for ESPN, an analyst, doing interviews and things of that nature with different coaches. He understands the different schemes and the way that the game is played today. So I think that it's very important when you make these hires that you bring on a guy that has experience not only playing the game, but also somebody who's been around the game, who hasn't been away from the game for too long. And I do think that he's a fresh mind. He's been around the game. He understands, like I said, the way that the games are played now. He understands these young kids that are coming into the league now. He understands the new college schemes, because a lot of stuff that we're seeing now in the NFL is coming over and spilling over from the college game. So a lot of the offenses that we see now, and the offensive schemes and the creative, imagination that we're seeing out of a lot of these offensive coordinators, kind of like the Cliff Kingsburys that coaches the Arizona Cardinals, the coach for the Rams, Sean McVay. A lot of these guys that are coming up from the college ranks, and they have these new offensive schemes that they're bringing up from the college ranks, but they're having a lot of success against these defenses here in the NFL. And I think Louis Riddick will understand. He understands the current game. So I think that that's going to play a huge part in him possibly getting the job. Another thing I like about Louis Riddick is when you bring in a GM, you want to have a GM that understands defense. And he was a former defensive player, so he knows the importance of stopping the run. He knows the importance of having those big guys, those big players, those physical players. Louis Riddick, when he was a player in the league, he was known as a physical player, a hitter, somebody that was an intimidator. And I think he will understand how to bring that to Atlanta. Similar to John Lynch. John Lynch is another guy that was hired by the San Francisco 49ers, and he had the same type deal. He didn't have as much background as far as being a GM, but he had the experience of being a player when he played with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, kind of like Louis Riddick. He was a Hall of Fame safety in John Lynch. And when he went to San Francisco, he was able to recreate, and build a good defense over there in San Francisco out west, there in California. So I think Louis Riddick can possibly do the same exact thing. Also, being that he's worked for ESPN and he's been able to interview with a bunch of different coaches and scouts, and he's been around the game, he's made connections, just like John Gruden was able to make that connection with Mike Mayock. I feel the same way about Louis Riddick. He's on these daily shows like First Take. He's on all of these NFL shows, NFL Live on ESPN. So he's met with a ton of different coaches, scouts, and he would be able to recruit all of these people that he's met since he's been doing his broadcasting and since he's been working for ESPN. He's made connections and he's been networking. So he possibly will be able to bring in, one of these young offensive coaches, one of these young offensive minds to help, the Atlanta Falcons continue to grow, continue to evolve, because I feel like that's one of the biggest problems with the Atlanta Falcons right now is that we kind of have failed to evolve to the new game, the way that it's played today. I feel like that's Dirk Cutter, our offensive coordinator. I feel like that's his biggest problem is he hasn't evolved. And if you remember years ago when he was here in 2012, when the Falcons went to that NFC Championship game, and he was here in the earlier 2000s, Dirk Cutter was one of the better offensive coordinators in the game. But I feel like the NFL and time has passed him by, and he didn't continue to learn and evolve and do things differently. And I feel like that's the biggest problem with Dirk Cutter. And that's one of the biggest problems with our Atlanta Falcons in general on both offense and defense. I feel like we haven't done a good job of adapting to the current way that the NFL is played, mainly on the offensive side, because defense, it's only so much stuff you can do on defense. Cover 3, cover 2, cover 1, zero blitz. It's not as that, it's not as complex as offenses. The offensive games have went to a whole nother level with the movement, the different alignments, the way you can, line up your guys, the different personnels. I feel like with these young minds that have come into the game, the Matt LaFleur's of the world, the Sean McVays of the world, and all these guys, Cliff Kingsbury's, Eric Bieniemy. I feel like a lot of these guys are they have took the offensive game to the next level. And I feel like that's another reason why the Atlanta Falcons have really struggled, is because we haven't taken the next step. When Kyle Shanahan was here, he was another one of those coaches that was one of the younger coaches in the game, one of the young, bright offensive minds in the game. And I feel like Louis Riddick would know how to bring in, and he's made these relationships with these guys, and he would know, what players to go after in the draft, being that he's been able to watch and interview these guys that are coming into the league. He kind of knows what players to bring in. He's been able to scout all 32 teams and see, what they do, how they go about their scouting. And I think he'll be able to bring that here to Atlanta. So I definitely think that Louis Riddick would be a great fit in Atlanta. Of course, him being an African American would add to it, because we don't have, to me, enough diversity in the NFL in general, especially as GMs. It's not a lot of black GMs in the NFL, or black head coaches, or not just black, but any other race. It's not a lot of diversity as GMs. There's not a lot of diversity in the head coaching ranks. So I do think that he deserves a shot at being a GM. I do think that he would be a good GM and a good fit. And it's for the reasons that I just mentioned. Like, he's, experienced. He's been around the game consistently. He knows these young players and what makes these young players tick. And he also knows the head coaches, and he's been around these organizations, and he's made, friends and been able to network. And he would know what guys to bring here to Atlanta. So I definitely think that he would be a good candidate for GM. You let me know what you think about Louis Riddick. If you think Louis Riddick would be a good, a good GM, I definitely think he would, just for the mere fact, like I said, I think he knows defense, number one, and that's what we're really missing here in Atlanta. He understands playing physical and the physicality of the game. He understands the young offensive game, the young offensive minds, and how the game has changed and went more to college style offenses. And he also has made the proper connections with these other organizations and with scouts and, coaches. And he would know what talent we would need to bring here to Atlanta. So I definitely think that he would be able to come in here and definitely turn things around. But you guys, like I said, let me know what you think about Louis Riddick. Do you think he'll be a good fit here in Atlanta? Personally, I think he would be a good fit. But with that being said, you guys also don't forget to tune in tonight at 8 p.m. The Atlanta Falcons heavy hitters, me, K Styles, Mad Mike Sports, will be doing our show this evening at 8. You guys definitely tune in on AFN. Also here on my channel, Mad Mike Sports will have it streaming there as well. And you guys continue to hit that subscribe button. Like I said, let's get this thing to 1,000 subscribers. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. In my next video I'm going to have for you guys, I'm going to break down my next head coach candidate for our Atlanta Falcons. But tonight we will be talking about this coming game against the LA Chargers coming up this Sunday. And we also possibly will touch on last week's loss against the New Orleans Saints. And we'll kind of talk about what we expect for the remainder of the season, because we are heading into the last quarter of the season, and we'll be able to just break some things down, talk about how we feel, how we feel about the current season and how it's went so far. And we possibly will also touch on some of the new head coaching candidates and GMs. But you guys definitely bring your questions as well, because we always do our Q&A sessions. So you guys definitely bring your questions as well and come join us tonight at 8. But don't just hit that subscribe button for me on my channel, but also go and hit that subscribe button at AFN, Atlanta Falcons Nation. They're on their way to 1K as well. And with that being said, this has been your boy Jew. I'm going to have a lot more content coming for you guys, but I appreciate you guys. And as always, Falcons Nation, rise up, peace and love, and I'm out.